got it.
Good morning, everybody. It's Tony here from Rebel Financial. Thank you for joining us again. Today, our guest is Bill Boggess from the Ohio Cancer Research Organization. Is that right? So,
Right.
all right. So we're going to talk about a number of things today. One, specifically what they do. In a nutshell, they offer grants to scientists. So I want to talk a little bit about that process. And so we'll go into length at that. But I also do want to talk about a little bit about cancer and the help that they're providing. So let me offer, first of all, congratulations. Last month you were promoted to Executive Director after you've been there 18 years?
Yep.
Okay.
Almost 19 now.
Okay. So, tell us a little bit, what do you guys do exactly?
We do two things, Tony, and the first one is very important, but we're known for it a little less than our primary mission. Number one, we have to provide public information and awareness about being proactive about your health. Reducing your cancer risks by the way that you live your life, eating healthy foods, getting exercise, reducing alcohol consumption, and all of those things. The overarching part of that is get a checkup and stay proactive about your health. Don't sit back and wait, because most cancers now are treatable. You can overcome this disease if you detect it early, and that's why one of our slogans is early detection saves lives, in a nutshell. And we see that all around the state. It's all around the country. The number of survivors is staggering. The other thing we do, and this is the thing for which we're probably better known, especially in the business community, is our seed money research program. And that is where we provide 2-year seed money grants to get young investigators within the first 6 years of their first independent lab doing their work in the state of Ohio up and running. I mean, the numbers have gone up over the years in terms of what we provide. They're currently $60,000 grants, 30 for the first year, 30 for the second year. There's a review process at the end of that first year to make sure the project is still doing what it was intended to do and is on track, and then they're awarded the second year's funding. That gets them up and running, and that allows them to go on to get the tangible results they need to apply to the NIH and other big funding sources.
Okay. A little bit, and it's, I'm naive about this, but we talk of the folks that you're giving this grant money to. I mean, I always think of as anybody who is, who's a doctor is, helping somebody, but a lot of them aren't. They're scientists, right? And they go immediately from, but probably during working on a PhD, to then continuing to research and things like that. I mean, is that basically what it looks like for these folks?
That's a great question. One of the most impressive things that I get to see on a regular basis is these researchers in action, and that the level of gratitude that they have for us and getting them started, because it seems like a little amount of money when it comes to research, but for them it's critical. Example, you're working at the James and you get your first lab up and running. Well, you have a telephone, and you have a computer, and you have an office, but you don't have any money. You're expected to go out and generate revenue to get your lab up and going, get your ideas off the ground. We provide them that critical funding. Okay. So some of them go on to become research physicians. And, for instance, in Cleveland or James or wherever, you may have somebody that's still conducting scientific research, but they are teaching at Case Western and maybe doing their the research at the Cleveland Clinic or what have you. There's a lot of collaboration going on right now. But yeah, they can't get up and running. So they have a great new idea. What am I going to do with it? I go to the NIH. That's a great idea. Good luck. Go out and get your tangible data and come back to us in a year or two when you have this thing at the next level. And that's where we come in.
Okay. Well, great. Let me digress a second and go to the first part of this, because it just more of a, as we want to talk about how we can help folks. I was reading up to 40% of cancer, the risks are, you can modify that. You talked about, as long as you're monitoring things, even if it's, whether you get it or not, you can get proactive about it and then attack it aggressively. But I just, there's the smoking, of course. We know these things are bad for us. But if you read, I could read an article every day on something causing cancer, right? I mean,
absolutely.
If my stride's too big, I might get some sort of cancer, right? So we got to live our lives. But smoking, of course, too much alcohol, physical inactivity. And these things all go together. And so the point I'm making is there are just so many cancers out there. Mm-hmm. And, there's so many obvious things that we all need to do to take care of ourselves, just to avoid the obvious ones the best we can, So, and I'll just one more thing about it. I'm not going to go to the website. I'm telling that more for Eileen right now, but we may later. But there are so many great resources on your website, including the section that says Cancer 411, and you can go down there and see all of the things. I'll ask you this about the research. Artificial intelligence and things like that, how much is that coming into play? I mean, it seems to me like we should be every day going forward, as we just get better and smarter with computers and such, that hopefully we're going to be making and having more breakthroughs with cancer research and such. Are you seeing a change? Or you've been doing it 18 years, and how people research things?
This is probably this would be considered, I think, by most scientists, and I get this from them, I'm not a scientist, that this is kind of the renaissance of battling this disease. Now, the disease evolves and it changes and it adapts and so forth, but right now there are more tools at their disposal, there is more collaboration than ever before, and you can see it. When we have an event and we say, how many people in this room are cancer survivors, and maybe you have 300 people in the room, and when you get 25 people raising their hand, that's incredible.
Right.
The number of survivors is just, so we are in a really, really great period in terms of battling this disease. The number one challenge is funding. That's the challenge, and that's what we do, and we're very unique in that regard. If you can't get the new idea up and running, we can't get the new breakthroughs. Here's a good example. There's a gentleman by the name of Sandy Markowitz, Dr. Sandy Markowitz. He's at Case Western Reserve University. We funded him in the 1980s for a mere $38,000, right? He's a worldwide name now, Dr. Markowitz. He identified the gene that denotes colon cancer in families, right there in Cleveland, right? You see the Cologuard commercials on television. That all emanated from his research. He's involved in that. What that did was a couple of things. If you don't have that particular gene, you don't have to live with the burden of thinking that you're going to develop that disease. If you do have that gene, you know that you have to be more proactive than ever before. You've got to get more frequent checkups, et cetera, et cetera. So that $38,000 he leveraged, went to the NIH, developed that idea, and generated another $6 million plus just from that. That's how the seed money, and it's changed the world. I mean, he's had a major impact on it. And that's just one of many stories. But he wrote us a letter and he said, period, this is if it were not for Ohio Cancer Research, my idea would have been dead in the water. He couldn't get the lab up and running. So that's the beauty of it.
You say NIH, just so we're all talking. Who's NIH?
National Institutes for Health,
okay.
and NCI, which is National Cancer Institute, is under their umbrella, and they fund cancer research. But again, the funding levels we were talking about before the show, the funding levels have dropped. I mean, precipitously. They were in the 30% range. They were funding research at that level, and it's down. We know 10%, and I'm being told now that it might even have dipped below 10%.
It's 10% of that.
Of
right?
that is getting funded.
10%.
Right. It's gone down to 10 or below percent of those grants are getting funded. And think about it, if you're a young scientist, it's discouraging. We've been hearing this for years. And we're in danger of losing a whole generation of scientists because they just can't get up and running.
Right.
And so these ideas are our ideas. OCR-funded ideas are groundbreaking. They're cutting edge. We take chances. We are rebellious, if you will.
Yeah.
Okay, I couldn't resist. These are rebel researchers, right? Right. I just had to do it. So go ahead. Sorry.
So, is that federal funding that we're losing out on?
Yes.
Squeezed?
Yes. So we get them up and running, and so our researchers are now more competitive. They develop their ideas. They get their tangible data. They go to the NIH. We have funded $8 million of direct money to these researchers. We don't fund the institution. It goes directly to that particular individual, their project, right? We've leveraged that into more than, and it's over this now, but officially more than $245 million. For example, here in Columbus, what's my number now? We're up to, at Ohio State and Nationwide Children's Hospital, we have now funded 53 researchers. $2.1 million, right? $2.1 million. That's a pretty good number, but it's not a huge number, but it has generated $80 million back to those individuals and institutions to continue. Yeah. It's a huge number. And statewide, it's $245 million, like I said, and 170 some researchers.
Right. No, that's incredible. We were talking about this before the show too. When you're a venture capitalist,
yes,
you have to be super selective. Well, the successful ones, even the unsuccessful ones, they're trying to find the right program to invest their money in, the right company.
Right.
And that's what it's that kind of a process for you all, right? It's not like, hey, we got this money that, thanks for sending us an email,
Right.
you got money. So talk a little bit about what they go through.
And I'm, just so you can check my numbers on this, because you probably know numbers. I'm not as good as you, but it's about a 30-to-1 return on the dollar when it comes to the actual science. So if we fund someone for that, that $500, what is that, 3,000, or no, it's 50. You do the math, Johnny. Yeah, you do the math. But it's a 30-to-1 return.
Right.
And it's pretty incredible. So, the other thing that we don't always mention, we probably should, if that particular recipient of grant money gets funding from the NIH or another national source, these are national, it could be the American Cancer Society, it could be any number of the Army funds cancer research, believe it or not. If they get that subsequent funding, and we are still in the funding process, we don't have to continue. That larger funding takes over. Now we can use those funds for a new idea.
Right. Okay.
And one last thing. Sorry to interrupt.
No, please.
Over 70% of well over 70 now, percent of our grant recipients are successful and go on to get the additional funding, the generated funding. Pretty amazing.
Yeah. So that second layer is there. You guys are really getting people that first layer to get to that.
We get them up and running, and that's the magic of it.
Yeah. So let's go to the website only real quick here, because, and it's, by the way, it's ohiocancer.org. And the only part I wanted to show, because you alluded to this, we actually show who's getting the funding and the successfulness that they've had. So it's keeping everybody honest too, right? I mean, and of course people have great ideas, and that just because they don't have an outcome doesn't mean it's a failure, right? I mean,
what an amazing, insightful thing for a financial guy to come up with.
I don't want to, right?
No, because for the longest time I thought, well, okay, over 7 out of 10 get the additional funding. What about those other 3? A number of things happen. That's an idea. That's a new idea that's never been tried before. Now it's been tried. They've gone down that road. Nobody else has to duplicate that effort because there's collaboration, there's feedback. That's been tried, didn't work. So there's benefit even if they are unsuccessful in pursuing that idea.
Yeah. I'm reading a book, Andy Duke, a professional poker player, talks about living in bets. Phil would know that.
Poker and cancer research go hand in hand.
Well, here it is. It's about knowing that sometimes doing the right thing, you get the bad outcome.
Right. Right.
And you lose the hand, right?
Yes.
I mean, so it's about doing the right thing, and like you said, it may not be the result that you expected, and maybe it goes down and opens our eyes about something else.
And sometimes, it could be a biologist or an engineer. Different people are conducting cancer research because there are so many crossovers now in the separate disciplines. It's amazing to me.
Yeah. The one I want to do one more thing, Eileen, here on the website as we come to it, as I go. The wheels are spinning a little bit, but what a great resource this is. All these different, cancers and things like that. Another book, it's called Everybody Lies. It's about a researcher from Google. And one of the benefits is that people will tend to Google the same symptoms, and then they've honed in to say, wow, that these people have pancreatic cancer, for instance. And they tend to do the same thing. So that was just an example I'm bringing up of pancreatic cancer. But this is just a great resource. The 411, the whole website is great here, but this just goes through every cancer. And the things you could even do, if it's in your family, to kind of maybe modify it a little bit. But I understand there's genetics and things like that involved, but.
And get a second opinion. I mean, it seems common sense, right? This is cancer.
Right.
Get a second opinion.
Yeah.
We feel like, we don't give cancer advice, but we can refer people to, resources that provide them that information. But, we have a donor, a supporter, a volunteer in the state who had ocular cancer, right? She went to one institution and they said, here's how we think we should treat this, right? And we strongly urged her to go somewhere else and get a second opinion. And she did, from one of the world's most renowned researchers in that particular cancer. And they removed her eye, and she's gotten a clean bill of health for years now. Had she pursued the first path, she would be dead. They said it was a 99% chance it was going to spread throughout her body. Now, that's not to be a knock on any particular, oncologist or anything. It just means that, just like anything in life, the more eyes you get on something, the more options you have. And so, don't be afraid. And good oncologists will, I think, tell patients that. You want to go out and get another opinion? That's great. You'll probably come back to me, and that's more than often the case, but they're going to concur. But be
Yeah.
be
Well,
proactive.
think about what we do in life. I mean, if we're getting new carpeting, right, we're going to go out
Right.
there and get a few opinions.
Right,
But
right.
now we're talking about, in your example, your eye, and you're
Or
giving
your
one
life,
opinion,
you know. Be be proactive.
Go through the steps to do that. So, so one last aspect of what you do, and that is the raising money part. How can the average person
The
help,
hard
or-
part, you mean, the hard
part, right,
the
right,
hard
right.
part.
Not the last part,
Right.
really, but the first part.
Yes.
So what can we do to help on that?
You know, the main thing that anyone can do for Ohio Cancer Research is convey our mission, because it's unique. It's unique in the country. It's unique in the state of Ohio. What we do is so vital to moving the ball down the field a lot faster. So that big return, getting new ideas, giving new ideas a chance, is our other slogan, give new ideas a chance. Let these young, talented people who are trying to make a difference in the world, get them up and running, because they're having dramatic impact. And if you want me to come over and tell you all about that at your house, I can tell you a lot of other success stories, right? But we have always generated our money through special events for many, many, many years, starting from no money, no research funded, to 170 some researchers and $245 million of research. We did that by special events. We honor people in different cities. We did an event here in Columbus, July 25, honoring Kyle Rooney from Turner. There'll be another honoree that night. So people will buy tables and they'll come out and support the event. We may generate $100,000, $200,000, whatever. But what we are doing now is we're doing a better job of major gifts. In other words, you read, we have an endowment fund now. Be a life changer. That's the slogan. Be a life changer. For those donors who have the means, we are now moving into the place where we want to create that endowment fund of $10 million so that we can fund. If it is a brilliant idea, there is never an issue of whether we can fund it. We have the means to do it.
Right.
Very selective, very competitive, but that's the key to OCR's future, is that endowment.
Yeah, that's awesome. Joking a little bit, how much traffic I see on 315, because seemingly these hospitals, so let's get them some money to do this research and keep it going.
Yep.
Let's just real quick go to the website here. We won't go too much into depth here, but I do want to be able to show people a lot of information. Like I just took you to the grant page with past grants and things like that. You could catch up on the events and things like that. Ways to give, if you're interested in that. The page I showed you initially was Cancer 411, and there is just a lot of great information there. So I encourage you, again, it's ohiocancer.org. So go there when you get a chance. So. But in either case, I appreciate you coming in. This has been great.
We appreciate the time.
Yeah, I mean, so many. I saw a stat: 1 in 2 men are affected by cancer, and
1 in 3 women.
1 in 3 women. So there's a lot, and it's great to see. Like you said, 25 survivors in a room. If you asked that a decade ago, it may have been 10. Who knows what the number was, right? And so we're making these great leaps about this. So anyway,
and we appreciate you allowing us, Rebel Financial, allowing us to one more avenue to convey our message, because 100% of the time when people learn about OCR, they want to be on board, they want to support it. Our biggest challenge is having a small staff covering the entire state of Ohio, so this is a huge help.
In small staff, house.
We've never had more than 7 people. We are currently at 3 people.
Right.
Soon to be hopefully 4 or 5. We've never had, nobody ever leaves. They come on board and they stay till till they're ready to retire. So, but we're turning a corner and getting more current, and we're very hip.
Yep.
New logo, we dropped the associates off the name. We rebranded Ohio Cancer Research, OCR.
Yeah. I think it's great on the website how you have a lot of the researchers on there. So, and I had read about some of the people like you talked about, Sue
Duty, yes,
Duty,
Wendy's.
and Ms. Levac, people who have been with you for a long time and helped. So that's great. Anyway, so thanks again for joining us. Next week, Phil, Jonathan, and I will be at a Morningstar Investment Conference, and so we will be talking to you live from there. So, in either case, thanks again for joining us. Bill, thank you. It was great talking to you.
We really appreciate it.
Who you are. So, everybody, have a great weekend. Thanks.